And what we're going to finish up on is just some discussions about the family. Like, so why is a family important? And I think that it's a natural progression from what you've been talking about. Is you talk about the beauty, you talk about wisdom, you talk about us being gifts. You talk about the beauty within feminism, within being a woman, the beauty within the masculine. But of course, it leads to something which is called a family. So if you could just talk about that. So what is it? Why is a family important? Especially when nowadays people can say what a family is according to what they want to choose. But from a Catholic perspective and through the theology of the body, what does it really mean to be family?
Yeah, thank you. So I mentioned, I think way back in the first segment, that in Genesis it says God created us in His image and likeness, male and female. He created them, and it's an interesting passage there in Genesis because this is a Jewish text, of course. Genesis, it's from the Old Testament, and yet there's a passage there right before this where it says that God said, "Let us create man in our image." Now, the Jewish people believed in one God. They weren't Christians who yet believed in a Trinitarian God like we do, who are Christian. And so it's a very mysterious passage that was allowed or written down. You would think that different people have had different interpretations, but looking at it from a Christian perspective, what do we see? Well, God has created the human person, and in creating a person, He's created a being that is made for relationship, for deep and profound relationship, for the gift of oneself to another. And this is where, as we said before, Adam was sad to see the whole world and all its beauty, and yet there's not another being to whom he can give himself. And then God creates from his side woman of the same nature. And here is a being that is complementary to him. She is created to receive his gift of self. And God then gives Adam and Eve to one another to be husband and wife, and he commands them to be fruitful and to have dominion over the earth. So what we see here is that there's a unique relationship between man and woman. It's the only relationship in which a new human being can be conceived and brought forth by nature. So what we see then is to be given to one another in that way is really a huge project of life, right? So it's been the teaching both of Judaism and Christianity that a man should marry one woman and they should abide together, and then they raise their children together, because that's a lot of hard work. Man and woman need one another, not only in the conception and the birth of the child, but then also in educating the child afterwards. And so that's very important. So that's kind of on a practical level. But what do we see then from a Christian perspective? Well, in the life of the Holy Trinity, we have the Father, who is pure spirit. The Father is not a body, right? He's not bodily, but he gives himself from all eternity to the Son. He generates the Son. So the Son from all eternity receives his being, his existence from the Father, and returns it to him. And then the fruit of that love, of that self-gift of Father and Son, is the Holy Spirit. Now, we have to be careful, because when we talk about this, there's no time in God. So this has always already happened. There was never a time when there was no Son of God. There's never a time when there was no Holy Spirit. But if we could take a snapshot of the Holy Trinity, say a still life, then that's what we would see. And actually, that's reflected in the human family. The husband gives himself entirely to his wife. She receives his gift. She returns the gift of herself entirely to him. And the love between them is so real that, as they say, 9 months later, you have to give that love a name, right? That's the origin of a new human life. So what you see in the family is the place where the image of God is most fully realized in society and in our homes. And this is part of why our wounds are so painful. When we have wounds that come from within our families, they hurt us so deeply because this goes to the very heart of who we are as human beings. Now, if you consider this, the family, the husband and wife that love one another and are faithful and have, remain married and love their children, what they are is a reflection to that child of the origin of all things, which is love itself, right? When husband and wife love one another, they are a reflection of God in the life of the child. And then vice versa, the gift of the child is a gift, right? The child is not something that they themselves create, it's something they receive. They receive that child from the hand of God, from within their love for one another. But that child is a whole new human being, which like it becomes pretty clear, I think, pretty fast. And when you want them to do one thing and they do the other, or they oppose you, or you're like, oh, this is okay, this child is different from what I expected. This child is a gift. God gave you this child. And in a sense, you're borrowing the child from God, right? The child is a gift. God has a design on the life of that child, and all of that is gratuitously given to you. It's not something that you can fully determine yourself.
That is so wonderful about the child being a gift, and having children of my own and grandkids. We certainly understand about will, that I don't have total control over this creature that came into existence. They're beautiful, but they have their own will.
Yeah.
So it shows my lack of control in some ways, but at the same time, I get to participate in bringing that child into the world as gift. And I like what you say about that as a reflection of God. Especially nowadays with so many families suffering and people trying to understand what a family is and just the pain. For me, as a therapist, I see that all the time. So I know you talked about the importance about the child being gift, but is there more you can say about the child? Because I know in our culture we kind of debate what is a child and when does a child begin and what the value of that child is. So in light of what you talked about, tell me, why is a child important in the eyes of God?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, in a sense, the child is revealing something very basic and fundamental about who we are and our relationship to God. So, the conception of a child, again, it's a gift from the Lord. And then we see the child in the womb utterly dependent upon its mother. And in some ways, we might be tempted to deny its humanity. Certainly, that's what happens when we promote abortion, is that we close our eyes to the child in the womb as already having human dignity. We want to deny that. But if we and we say, oh, it's the dependence that the child has upon its mother, or we place the child's body in competition with the mother's body, forgetting that a woman and her body is fitted to motherhood. And so to destroy motherhood is to wound the woman, even if in the moment her motherhood is very difficult and maybe wasn't planned, or could have come about in the most terrible of circumstances. And yet she has the capacity for this motherhood, for the sheltering of this life and bringing this life into the world. And so for that to be destroyed in her is a great violence to her and a source of tremendous suffering. But a child in the womb of its mother, utterly dependent upon its mother, is really an image of us. Because for all that we might be able to do with our free choice, and it certainly is real, that freedom, it's not the first thing, as we said in the first segment, it's not the most primordial thing. The first thing is this reality that's been given. And we are utterly dependent upon God. We are dependent upon one another. We're dependent upon society in order to have our food and nourishment. So the baby takes its nourishment straight from the umbilical cord. Well, I go to Walmart and I buy groceries, but if Walmart weren't there, I would have a really hard time feeding myself. And so in a sense, you can see, like there's always, we are creatures who depend and rely upon other creatures. And so for us to think that being an adult or being a person means that we are absolute and we say we determine everything and we are independent, that's not exactly true. Our independence and our freedom are all within a context, right? A broader context. So there's the I think the importance of the child and of allowing a child to truly be a gift, to recognize that the child is not a possession that I as an adult determine, but the child is a gift. And I need to try to open the children in my life to recognize that yeah, they were wanted by mom and dad, or even if they weren't wanted by mom and dad, they were wanted by God. God created them. God willed them into existence and believed in them and wanted them and still wants them. And that's kind of the spiritual umbilical cord that we all need to be spiritually whole and well, is to know that regardless of what struggles we have, brokenness in our family, difficulties with our sexuality or our sexual identity or any of those things, God willed us and loves us. And so that is certain and sure. And then we can grow in seeking God who loves us and allowing him to teach us and reveal to us our identity, reveal to us the path that we should take, which, of course, as Catholics, we would never separate from the revelation that he's given us in scriptures and the teachings that have come down through 2,000 years of Christianity. So that at first might seem like something that is undesirable. Maybe we would rather be able to shape reality just how we want to. But in the end, if we could just shape things according to our whim, then that would mean there was nothing greater, more steady, more stable. There was nothing more than just me. And if I'm stuck with only me, I came into existence and I'll die. That's not much, that means that ultimately in the end, there really isn't meaning. Whereas if there is God and there is a revelation and there is a teaching and there is reality, I have to learn how to receive that and accept it. But there's something larger than me that upholds my whole life, and that brings security.
Wow. Christine, this is just incredible. And this is just a foretaste, just a summary of theology of the body. So we're going to have to end here, but Christine, and I'll leave some information about how people can get in contact with Christine. But Christine, is there a quick way that people can get in contact with you if they wanted to get more information about theology of the body or just ask questions? What would you suggest?
So feel free to email me at the diocese. You can find me on the diocesan website, or you can just email me, christine.myers@dioceseoftulsa.org.
Thank you, Christine, and God bless you.
Thank you, Deacon. God bless. Thanks
Bye-bye.
for having me.
You're welcome.